Might as well call me Long-Winded John on this one, Daryl. All right, it's 40. It's 4:33 p.m. West Coast time. It's still Friday. It's still the 19th of April, 2024. We were talking about our gentleman in Trump's area burning himself alive for a message there, weren't we? And I was trying to go over some information. You happen to brought up the Burning Man, the Burning Monk at Nam. He's reminded you of him, and it also reminded me to check into this guy's claim. One of them I happened to pay attention to was actually it was the 2000 election. I still got my paper with a hanging chad on it. Is this still cannibal? No, but the burning guy is no joke on this one. There had been times when people have been burning things left and right to get a dramatic response from people, to make them be aware of a situation that there was something happening that needed a better resolution on, or something that maybe there was controversy, or maybe there was conflict. I don't know. All I know is from what the reports were telling me, and then when I had to look at the information myself. I mean, I had to look to see what the hell they were talking about, the hanging chad. So I had to research that one, what it was, and I had to make myself a hanging chad, and then understand how a machine would catch it as one particular result when it should have been another result, or it should have been another result. And if there was controversy in that, yeah. And it had to be a Supreme Court decision to make the determination of a presidential election. Now, here's the question to you, Daryl. You're somewhat hip on the time period that we both survived through, the Vietnam era. Now jump it to what we had gone through 2001. I'm going to ask a question of you, and I don't know if you're going to answer it or not, but I wish you would. Try to answer your videos left and right. You owe me a field, pal. Okay, in your understanding of history, would you have thought that if Al Gore had won the 2000 election, regardless of the Chad situation, if he had won the 2000 election, would he have had the military chops necessary regarding the response compared to what G.W. did, G.W. Bush? We had already had anti-Semitism. Uh, we actually had Islamophobia happening. So we already had the persecution of people of Middle Eastern descent of any sort. We already had it happening. We already had a few synagogues burning, tagged up, ruined, because you had these guys doing the hate groups crap. And then 9/11 kicked. One would wonder which particular president would have had a better opportunity, or the sad ultimate truth being handed to him on a plate saying, we must go to war. Bush may have won the account, but would he have gotten impeached on this one? Not Bush. Al Gore, I meant to say. Al Gore may have gotten into a situation, but would he push us into war? I keep thinking no. Despite the fact that he may have had some military training in his own time, I don't think Al Gore would have had the chops to put us through what we've been going through for the past 20 some odd years. Unfortunately, inevitably had to be George Jr., not Senior. Senior would have gotten us into the situation had we gone into that territory. He would have put us into a war situation. He had already been dealing with the Iraq War. He was going to be pushing Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait after Hussein went in there. And Hussein, or Insane as I call him, Saddam Insane, was gassing people up left and right, poison gas, and God knows what else he was using up in the northern territory of Iraq, murdering Kurds left and right. He kept an iron thumb on everybody, basically. When we had the Iraq War, a lot of his troops went out there and surrendered. They saw the world responding. They didn't want to have any part of it. No wonder it lasted 3 weeks. After fighting with everybody else's armies, they were not trained for this. And they surrendered. Made Hussein back off. But he still stayed in power for decades until we had 9/11 kicking in. And then all hell really broke loose on this one. Maybe it was time for George W. Bush to be something of a head up on his old man. Maybe it was a sign of pride, hubris, ego, fate, destiny. I don't know. I'm not glad of it. I'm just making a notation of the damn thing because I don't think Gore would have gotten us into a war. But we would have been calling for a war footing after trade towers have been hit, the Pentagon been hit, and almost the Capitol, or let alone the White House, been hit. It was only 4 aircraft. Only 4 aircraft that got hijacked. One of them went down in Pennsylvania because the passengers decided, no, they're not taking this. They're not going to have our capital attacked by these lunatics. They took action and they had to pay the price. Their sacrifice is still known to this day. Hardly anybody else talks about Flight 93. But this one was going to hit the Capitol. Not the White House, but the Capitol. They did a little bit of damage on the command and control, which was the Pentagon. Take out the lawmakers? What do you got? A president would have been doing martial law right there and then. Suspending everything. Turning our whole country into martial law. If the Capitol had been blasted, or how about if the White House had been rammed by the same Flight 93? Or even by that Pentagon plane. Take out the White House. If they had another plane, they could have done it. This scares me on sometimes when I keep talking about this one and thinking about it, Daryl. You're talking about the Burning Man who was protesting, and I'm thinking about other things that was bringing up other stuff that was terrifying the crap out of me in this one. But having the former gas bag saying that he was just like Al Capone, I hate to say it, but Al Capone would not match up to Trump. He would not be comparable to Al Capone. Yeah, Al Capone was a violent guy. He was vicious. But the one thing he did have a heart for was the children. He helped, or probably helped create, the program of dating milk to make sure that the expiration date is mentioned so no kid could have sour milk and not make them feel ill all the damn time when they had milk. Milk expired for days or weeks, sold to people. He makes sure that there was expiration date, that no sour milk could be sold or drunk by anybody, including the children. At least he had a soft spot for that one. I'll give him that one. Everything else, he was a vicious gangster. He was a gangster of his times. Trump, unfortunately, is the gangster of our times. Having this lunatic burn himself alive for a protest. Hardly anybody had been covering what exactly that meant. I'm going to have to watch the 5 o'clock major news stories just to see what they're going to talk about him, if they are going to continue to talk about him. And maybe they'll do some video clips I can watch on YouTube on this one, just so I can get an understanding what was about this lunatic that got everyone else's attention. You brought up in your other video concerning about the monk. The 1963. There had been video sites about this one. I'll just head over to NBC News, June 11th, 2013. How one particular photograph changed everybody. Have been pictures about this monk earlier. Guangning, leading spokesperson for the Charloi Buddhist pagoda in Saigon in June 27th, 1963. I'm reading part of this online. 50 years ago today, Associate Press correspondent made a series of photographs that would shock a president and impact U.S. policy on the Vietnam War. This article was written by Jonathan Sanger back in June 11th of 2013. MSNBC, actually NBC News on this one. The story of how it happened began at 9 p.m. on June 10th, 1963. We got a few months away on that one. When journalist Malcolm Wild Brown received a cryptic message that something important would happen at a memorial service organized by Buddhist monks the next morning. As day broke on June 11th, the service began. Actually, the service started with nuns and monks chanting in the temple. After a while, the group moved onto the streets, chanting in a procession. The group paused to surround a car and took out a can of aviation fuel. I realized at that moment exactly what was happening and began to take pictures a few seconds apart, wrote Brown in a letter to the AP General Manager Wes Gallagher on September 30th, 1963. This particular news link I'll send over to you as well. One of the monks sat down in the street, and fellow monks covered him in nearly 5 gallons of fuel. Moments later, Thich Guan Duc struck a match and set himself ablaze. It was then that Brown made a photo that left an indelible impression on people across the globe. The caption was Thich Guan Duc, a Buddhist monk, burns himself to death to protest alleged persecution of Buddhists by the South Vietnamese government. Hell, I thought it was North Vietnamese. I was wrong on that one. I have to make that correction. The South Vietnamese government. This was the photograph that made. Oh, God. While the image above is more familiar today, it was not the photo that was widely published in newspapers at the time. It was sent over the wire a few days after the image below, a version of which was used in papers worldwide a mere 15 hours after Thich Quang set himself on fire. The photo compelled President John F. Kennedy to reassess U.S. policy in Vietnam, ultimately increasing the number of troops. Brown died on August 27, 2012, in New Hampshire at the age of 81. Yeah, heavy. The question would be, what was this guy who burned himself alive outside Trump's court hearing in a protest section? What was he protesting about? These guys have got to dig into this guy's history to see what the hell's going on. Because I'd like to find out what he was protesting about. Not just for conspiracy, but what was motivating his ass on this one. There had to be something else about this one. Had to be something on social media telling the public, telling something or someone why he was doing this. Not just because of the Donald Trump situation or every conspiracy nut job out there wanted to do this damn thing. No, you don't torture your ass up like this unless there was something important for you to say in a way that would shock the country or shock the world. I mean, 15 hours after a photograph had been produced in 1963 regarding a monk setting himself ablaze, that was setting a message and a precedent among everybody and anybody, including people in the future and historians, to realize something important was happening. When I was growing up as a kid, history didn't affect me all that much because I wasn't paying attention much to history, but I was paying attention to history. It just wasn't jiving on me to study school and go through the notes even harder on this one, trying to ace any grades or anything. I'm just watching history happening and not even realizing what was going on. What was the importance of all this? What was the importance of all of this? I mean, we barely heard about or barely learned about Vietnam growing up as a kid. We both lived in that kind of era. We didn't have that much information about Vietnam because it was too damn recent and too damn fresh. You couldn't talk to the vets about it because they were too screwed up. Literally. I mean, they had so much. If you would, there are different terminologies for PTSD: shell shock, battle fatigue, combat stress. Doesn't matter. Your brain's fucked. Your brain's broken. You got so much bad memories in there that's driving you insane. Your body is reacting one way or another because your brain cannot deal with the murder of another human being on a constant basis or seeing people blown up in front of you. You just can't literally handle that. And if you can, there's going to be a price down the road where you're going to be going ape on this one. Because it's not in a human condition. I mean, yeah, we can see the blood and we can go, with the choppers or whatever kind of things we're going to nail and massacre something in front of us. But afterwards, how's it going to affect you down the road? A lot more videos on that one to do. I mean, that is a Pandora's box blown to hell, and that one should be examined, investigated. And there's been a lot of medical reports, psychological stories, and journals about it. A lot of veterans' accounts on what they've been through, books on the stuff. I mean, it's a plethora of it. But getting back to our burning guy situation there, who takes some alcohol or fuel of some sort and burns himself alive. I mean, he tossed his paperwork in the air, and then decides he's going to burn himself to make a message of it. Now, I'm wondering if this guy's already seen other videos or other pictures or read history at that point of protesting. Was this the only way to get the government's attention or the press's attention by doing this? Did he have media footprints? I mean, he committed some penny ante stuff, hardly worth mentioning. But it didn't march up on the psychological level here to where he was going to be killing himself in the process. When I was looking at that news reports, when I was looking at the stories, even the old stories from NBC on that one. Yeah, it was making my stomach curl. It was making my stomach churtle on this one. It was like, now what do I got to deal with? Holy crap. So, yeah, this is going to go crazy. Right now, MSNBC is having an issue concerning about the states doing the abortion control, lockdown, elimination of it. Pregnant women can't even get into hospitals and deliver, or hospital emergency rooms refuse to treat pregnant women, leaving one to miscarry in a lobby restroom. I'm seeing this AP ad on this one. That an AP report, Associated Press report, did this one. Now to go to commercial break on this. I didn't listen to all the chatter on that one. That wasn't bad enough. If that wasn't bad enough. Okay, I think we've had enough on this insane asylum. Daryl, hell of a time we're living in, isn't it? I'm seeing things in my life. I'm mentally recording them in my head of things we're going through, surviving through, and trying to understand what the hell we're putting ourselves through. Because, quite honestly, I don't understand a damn thing of it. Honest to God, I don't understand, Daryl. But how is it for our parents trying to live through this damn shit, watching history being played out? It was monumental. It was stupendous. It was like, huh? And then we look back at it, we read it, and reread it in our history books. We're like, son of a mutant, we've been there, didn't we? As kids, as babies, we were living through the Vietnam era. And for me, it was the Apollo era. I didn't think about Vietnam. I thought about space era. I thought about science fiction. I didn't think about how gruesome war was. Well, I'll see the writers' interpretations of it in different shows left and right, but it was only later on that when me and my brother were exploring videos. We had found some DVDs. We'd also watched History Channel, and we were seeing war. Here's one thing. Back in the 70s. Back in the 70s. In junior high class, I remember seeing in some of the history classes that we saw a world at war. This was a series that was being played upon in the early 70s. People actually were starting to get the VHS tapes and taping stuff. Some things were coming out in VHS. But this was World War II being played out. We needed some kind of historical preference. We needed something to learn about. This damn thing happened about in the 30s and the 40s, and we were in the 70s. How is that relevant to us in this day and age? Well, hell, what was going on in the early 70s? We had the Vietnam War, but that wasn't televised as much. Actually, it was. Videos had to be clipped. We had the Korean War going on. What do we have? MASH. But we didn't have anything about the Vietnam War until they started talking about it more and more. Vets freaking out, vets having issues, vets going to police departments, vets trying to do the best they could. But there was no stories, no movies about these guys until about, late 80s and then the 90s. And in 2000s, they were talking more and more about the PTSD and the flare-ups on that situation. We didn't realize what war was, Daryl. We had no concept, no clue of it. I know what street fighting was in my own damn streets. gang warfare. But that wasn't compared to what was going across the country and seeing that war going on. Until Daryl, my dear friend from the East Coast, then we had the 1990s. They were talking about Johnny Come Marching Home and some of those songs. It's hard as hell to see a brother pack up. Potentially been discharged out of the military, but they still recalled his ass. He was going to war. That was his job. That was his job, Daryl. He was going to fucking war. And it would be a long month until he came back home. Had to compartmentalize everything. Had to shove everything down so he could function. It was not until a little bit later on he was telling me some of the stuff. But he could barely talk about it with other people that had been through war. What I was hearing. Daryl, I got a question for you. How did the ancient soldiers, I'm not talking about the ones firing the muskets, I'm talking about the ones carrying the swords and everything, how did they deal with it afterwards? Were they getting drunk all the damn time? Drinking away all the damn memories? Slashed, murdered, butchered, fought, defended, stabbed? How did I feel afterwards? We played violent video games in the 80s when they came out. I did. The shooter games basically, not the slashes. I'm not good at that, but shooting fine. Blast them out of the sky. Blast an image here, there. It's only just computer images, right? All these spaceships. I was trying to develop faster and faster eye-hand coordination. But I really wasn't all that intelligent anyway. At least I didn't think so. But I was getting numb. I was getting numb. I was getting numb. We'd watch movies, we'd watch TV shows, we'd read books about it. The glamorized version of what war is all about. War is not glamorous. War is terrifying. Every once in a while, I'll pull out a Star Wars Battlefront 2, one back in 2005, and blast away computer images. To me, they're just computer images. Sometimes I wonder. At times, I had other games that fly starships at each other and blast each other to bits. And sometimes you gotta wonder. Sometimes you have to wonder. If I'm having a really bad day and I just want to get frustrations out, that's my way of getting frustrations out. But still, burn a guy alive because of something deep inside crawled around. He had to get the message out. Nobody was paying attention, so this is his only way of doing it. So yeah, I feel sorry and sympathy for the bastard. Trying to understand where the hell he was coming from. Trying to understand why this guy torched his ass. Trying to figure out what makes a guy go off the deep end like that. Maybe it was right somewhere. Either Shakespeare said it or somewhere in the Bible. He who increases knowledge increases sorrow. And maybe they got a point on that one. If I'd been a survivor of humanity, A lot of stuff I've learned. I'd be the saddest and not quite wiser of us all. And that would scare the hell out of me. That'd be the saddest thing of all. Well, we get too damn deep and I'm drowning in my own stuff here.